On blast.
This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network. Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
On blast.
Thank you. You're far too kind for tuning in once again to this little thing we like to call the Ball on Blast Podcast. My name is Sheldon and Alexander, and once again, I'm joined by my dude, Andrew Webster. Webby, what is good?
Just taking in all the all-star festivities from Charlotte. Here's my thing, and I know we're going to get into it, but I want to address it right away because we have differing opinions on J. Cole. And I was saying...
No. I got a thing on it. We'll get to that.
All right.
I know you got... Don't worry. I got a spot saved for you.
I've got tape.
Don't worry. We'll get to that. Don't worry, Webby. Come on now. I got you covered.
Well, now...
I know we're coming with the J. Cole takes.
Coming in hot.
Don't worry.
All right,
I'm aware. I got you covered.
We haven't had any pro basketball action in the last little while. And so tonight, big deal, North Carolina, Duke, tune in. And, Shelly, what happens less than a minute into this game?
Right? Less than a minute into the game, Zion blows out a shoe, which
Rips
I've never
his
seen that
entire
happen
shoe,
before.
exactly.
And subs out of the game. Like, the shot of Zion, I feel like the collective basketball world, as he slipped and just went to the ground grabbing his leg, the collective basketball world all sighed at the exact same time, no?
And he's not coming back in this game. And I was just saying to you, I think that may have been the last time we're going to see Zion play college basketball.
The funny part about it, and we were about to talk about it, and I said, no, we'll save it for the pod, but Scottie Pippen, a couple weeks ago, everyone was laughing at Scottie Pippen because he suggested that Zion should not play another game in college because the NBA's calling and he's a surefire number one pick and has so much money ahead of him and that he shouldn't play college anymore. Do you remember that? That was like 3 weeks ago, max, no?
Yeah.
And everyone laughed Scottie Pippen out of the gym, right? And now you're looking at that play and you're like, oh, shit. It's crazy. It's crazy because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But it's just funny not funny. It's just odd that was a talking point that we all kind of laughed at. And then you see the most ridiculous thing ever where his shoe explodes on a cut. That's weird.
If he never plays, if he really does never play for Duke again, comes out in the draft, is he still the number one overall pick?
It'll be, funny enough, you're a Sixers guy, right?
Yeah.
It'll be an Embiid situation.
Absolutely.
Right? Because Embiid was supposed to be the top pick overall.
I don't know
then he
if
had
it's...
injury problems, and then Embiid fell, but he wasn't going to fall that far. Zion, I think, if he doesn't play another game and there's injury concern, he can't fall that far, right? Like, I still see him going number one, but I can't see him falling that far.
It's a good comparison, too, because, your number one and number two that year were both on the same team with Wiggins and Embiid, right?
Ah, good call.
And now you have Barrett and Zion, but I just have just seems to me that Zion is such a bigger slam dunk, pardon the pun, than Embiid was that year. It seemed like Wiggins was kind of the consensus number one overall pick, where Zion has seen that way. So it'll be interesting, man. Yeah, we're selfish.
Sure.
We're selfish basketball fans. We want him to play because we like
that's
to see
the thing.
Zion do cool shit.
Well, that's the thing. Regardless of what your rooting interest is between Duke and North Carolina or whatever, I feel like every basketball fan was like, oh no, when Zion hit the ground. So, I mean, that's not a good look at all. Tough way to start the podcast. I mean, but we have to talk about it because it's literally happening as we were about to start recording. So, crazy stuff there. Tough way to start the pod, but of course, it's Ball on Blast. We do talk a little.
Got it.
We talk all basketball, of course, but mostly we talk about the NBA, right? Zion probably going to be a future star. Zion might be a future star of All-Star Weekend. How's that for segue? Does that work?
It does work. But if he is at All-Star Weekend, is anybody going to see him?
Oh.
I mean, the numbers were in from the All-Star game on Sunday, and it's been the lowest rated NBA All-Star game in like 10 years.
Which is super interesting to me because there's so much going on with, like, we would argue the NBA hasn't been more popular, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like what's happening is the NBA trends younger, right? And younger people do not have cable TV. They're not watching cable TV. And so the numbers are going to be down for everything involving the NBA. I just think that that's a sad reality of where things are going because, there's so much more going on the web. Whereas, for example, Saturday night, there's a complete alternate feed where you could watch Barkley and KG reacting to the slam dunk contest on TNT's Twitter feed, right? So it's interesting. You're right. And so my point, I guess, is the NBA numbers, it shows you something, but it's not really telling you the full story. But of course, that's still where the money's made, is still TV for now, right?
Absolutely. And that's a really good point. Even on TV, they spread those things out in terms of having those second screen experiences, in the college football, they have the coaches and All-Star. Did you watch any of that with KG and Charles?
I did. I popped it up a couple times just to see what was going on, just to check it out. And they literally just had one camera set up that was live streaming, and it's just a shot of them sitting there courtside. But the thing was, it wasn't live to like what was happening with my TV, so you couldn't really watch it at the same time.
Oh, really?
Right? Like, yeah, like they were ahead of what my TV was.
Huh.
Right? So, I mean, it was interesting, but I don't know how much or where that's going in the future. But the other interesting point was, you mentioned the ratings. On Sunday, the other thing that they did was, in the States anyways, it was different in Canada, but in the States, they had two feeds going. You could watch the normal feed on TNT, and then on TBS, they had the players-only feed, which was Greg Anthony, Charles, and KG.
And that's what I meant by spreading it out, too, right?
Yeah, totally. But what did you think of All-Star Weekend? Like, numbers are down, but what did you, Andrew Webster, think of NBA All-Star Weekend as a whole? Did you enjoy it? What stood out to you the most?
Well, the thing that stood out to me most was a moment, right? Was the Curry bounce pass to Giannis. I think that's going to be your lasting image of this All-Star. I thought that, I don't know, I thought KD winning MVP was a little anticlimactic, as, a lot of what he did was done in the first quarter, and then a little bit of an explosion late. Yeah, kind of right when LeBron's team seemed to have taken control. Now, I don't know who you would have given the MVP to. I thought Lillard had a good game, but
for sure. What were they calling him? Logo Lillard or something like that?
Well, they asked him, and I loved it. They were like, they didn't start him, but they were like, we're going to play him in the second half and like rely on him a lot because that's Lillard time. But
he's balling.
But there was definitely a difference between this year and last year. I thought last year's game was, like we talked about it last year, how incredible and how fiercely competitive that game seemed to be. And this year it seemed to revert back to the kind of all-star games that we grew up with, that it's just kind of going through the motions, not playing defense. There didn't seem to be a lot of like stake in the game,
Do you know what I think it was? So one thing, last year's All-Star game was a lot more competitive, and I think it was probably just because it was the first time they did the new format,
right,
with picking teams and all that, and I think that led to it being a lot more competitive because it's just something new. This time around, I feel like there was so much talk about LeBron's team being way better than Giannis's team, and so KD was just chilling. Like you mentioned it, right? Like he kind of picked his spots and it worked out, but there's so much talk about LeBron's team being way better than Giannis's team, and so what you saw early was Giannis going super hard and trying really, really, really hard, and that's where the big lead came from. But then at the end, it's kind of, yes, LeBron's team is way better, and that's what the game was.
Yeah.
My thing, though, was I enjoyed it. I mean, I still thought it was a good game, like in terms of all-star games, so I'm saying that on grading on a curve. And so my thing was the reactions that everyone had afterwards. Like there was a lot of different media takes, a lot of just different people I spoke to were saying that they didn't like the All-Star game at all. They were bored by it. People were crushing the All-Star Saturday night, saying it's a waste of time and it was boring. And I was so confused by this, Webby, that I asked one of our guys and one of the editors at Sportsnet, one of my guys, Timmy Haggs. You know Timmy Haggs,
of course,
right? And I asked him this on Tuesday because we were about to tape the pod, and before I left work, I asked him, I was like, yo, man, I'm trying to figure this out, and I can't make sense of it in my mind, like, what's throwing me off about this, but why are people so rattled and, like, seem so, quote, angry about the All-Star game? And he just simply said, well, what did people expect? And then everything clicked for me right there. I was like, that's it. I'm not really here for the All-Star game for like the actual game or the event. I'm here for the hoopla of what the All-Star game represents, the event that the All-Star game is. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Here's what I think about the All-Star game and the whole All-Star weekend is that, and we talked about this a little bit about the beginning with the TV. The All-Star weekend, it's not even, you don't even need to televise it.
Yeah.
Just send me the tweets of what happens. You know, I don't need I don't need a 4-hour broadcast of having Reggie Miller and Chris Webber and whoever else you want to put in that booth react to dunks. Like, you know what? Show me these guys dunk in a 2-minute clip. Right? Like, have it live, but just broadcast it to Twitter because it's all this extra stuff that I don't care about. And even the All-Star game itself, there's a couple of great moments that you're going to consume on Instagram. You know, why would you need to watch that entire All-Star game? What other than that Steph Curry bounce pass to Giannis, give me one crazy moment.
That's so funny because I heard someone else say the same thing. Like, why would you watch all of Saturday night? And I went the opposite way. I'm like, I'm here. Anytime you tell me Ernie, Chuck, Shaq, and Kenny are calling whatever, or they're just there, I'm here for the entire time, right? And again, I'm like them. I'm not here for the actual game. I'm just here for the jokes. So that's part of the reason why I'm there, but also just the event factor of what the All-Star game is. Like, to me, the three-point contest, whatever.
Oh,
the skills competition, I think, is trash.
I thought the three-point contest this year was better than the dunk contest.
No, I agree with you there. I like the three-point contest. I'm just saying it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, okay, cool. I like it. I enjoy it. It was cool. It's cool to see a dude wet 12 straight threes or whatever Joe Harris did,
yeah.
Right? To win that. And the dunk contest is super hit or miss to me, right? But I think it was Rachel Nichols that brought up the point about the NBA and culture and how the NBA just understands not only its players, but the culture of the people that follow the sport so much better. And they're in a different place, right? So her example she used was when you have the All-Star game and you have 30 baseball players in a room, you just have 30 baseball players in a room. But when you have 30 NBA players in the room, you basically get the front page of Us Weekly combined with 30 NBA players, right? There's so much more storylines. There's so much more to all of these guys, right? LeBron is building a media empire. KD is basically about to move his empire from Golden State to New York. There's just so much other storylines, so much else going on. And I'm here for all of that. I want to see what people are wearing. I want to see what celebrities are in Gucci Row. I want to see what new kicks are out, right? I want to hear Chuck make fun of Shaq and whoever. I want to see their interview with Meek Mill. I'm here for all that stuff for All-Star Weekend. And so for me, I wasn't disappointed.
But for a league that looks so far ahead and is so progressive in almost everything that they do, it's so weird that their All-Star game is so static throughout the years, right? There's no different.
You're right. The game itself isn't anything special.
No, but I'm even saying that even the Saturday night, there's got to be some way to change around either how you're presenting this or what kind of events are going on. Because, the same old thing year after year of tuning in at 8 o'clock on the Saturday night for the 3-hour broadcast is, that's not how it's done anymore. That's not how media is done. And for such a progressive league like the NBA to think outside of the box when it comes to expanding who's enjoying your league and to really outreach for global audience, to then think so inside the box when you're trying to promote all this talent in your league through the All-Star weekend is really confusing to me.
Well, first things first, you got to get rid of, I'm not here to listen to Reggie Miller at any time, to be honest.
That's what I was saying. We need to all sit down and have a really serious Reggie Miller conversation because he's really ruining a lot of these games and a lot of these events.
It's so annoying. And, you give me the option of Chuck, Kenny, and KG, and Shaq, and Ernie, just not doing play-by-play, but more so sitting down and talking, having a conversation as if they're in their living room or they're in my living room with me watching the festivities. You know what I mean? I'm much more here for that than I am for the play-by-play and terrible jokes that Reggie Miller's trying to give me for, you know, the 3-hour game, or Chris Webber talking about no help defense during an all-star game.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, are you
Where's the
calling
help?
this for real? What's happening? Right? But again, I'm entertained because the NBA gave me enough stuff where, like, Anthony Hamilton singing the anthem a year after Fergie, the like counter of that was pretty cool. I thought that was dope what Anthony Hamilton did. Meek Mill. Now, what other league, Webby, is going to allow a dude that, you know, forget about situation, rightfully or wrongfully being imprisoned, but a year out of jail performing on, like, that league's biggest stage?
Yeah.
Like, that would never happen in the NHL. Definitely not after we watched Maroon 5 at the Super Bowl halftime show. But for the NBA to be, like, they're the best at understanding their fan base and understanding their players in terms of understanding what Meek Mill means to the culture. And I always say this on this podcast when I say culture, because far too often people think that culture just means black and white.
Right.
Or they think it's like a substitute for black people and white people, and it's not that. It's culture, meaning you understand the importance that Meek Mill means to the culture and what he's doing now, but also how his imprisonment unified the culture. Do you know what I mean? And so he was able to come out and represent so much more than just being a rapper. But having him perform, like, I know you as a Eagles fan, especially, Webby, but seeing Dreams and Nightmares performed over, like, normal over-the-air TV, I was like, this is incredible.
Absolutely. Well, but that, like, it goes back to what I'm saying. Like, they obviously, the NBA understands its audience. They understand who is watching the games. They understand who's buying the tickets. They understand who's buying the merchandise. But it still comes back to, you're presenting this exhibition of all of the talent and the celebration of your culture, and you're doing it in such an old hand way. It's like like they were showing that it literally hasn't changed since the All-Star weekend started back in, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's the same. And I really think that they've got to take advantage of what they're doing online and through social media to really change what and I'm not talking about, like, hey, tweet us what dunk you want to see, or, like, we're going to bring the wheel of dunks back. Nah, like, you got to really think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And they, you know, even breaking up the broadcast, like they had it with Charles and KG on one broadcast, but, like, even more outside of the box. How are we going to, like, what is the All-Star game going to look like in 10, 15 years? Hopefully not the same as it looked the previous 10, 15 years.
I understand what you're saying, but I wonder if it's like how much you can actually change from the game, because that is so much dependent on the players. And one of the things I enjoy watching, to be honest, is who is clearly still drunk from the night before.
James Harden.
Yes, for sure. That is always the answer, right?
Yeah.
And in this era now where you're picking the teams, I feel like that's one of the things that I'm so interested in. I'm a basketball nerd. Like, I'm, like, way too deep that I understand the casual fan doesn't care. But I enjoy laughing at the fact of when you're watching someone shoot just step back three after step back three, and those are the only shots they take for the entire game. You're like, okay, this guy is sweating out the Hennessy for sure, right?
Just
or
look at Russell
just
Westbrook's,
how awkward Jokic looked.
Russell
right?
Westbrook's line from the All-Star game is great. It's like it's like he took 10 shots and was 1 for 9 from three-point land. Like,
in
that's
like 19 minutes, he took like 20 shots or something like that.
Yo, it's crazy, man.
So, but I enjoy watching that stuff, right? Like Russ being Russ, like at the ultimate level. Dudes just, you know, KD was playing no defense on Giannis and then just talking shit, forcing him to shoot threes, right? Like, I liked watching that stuff. KD talking shit to JoJo. I enjoyed watching that stuff. I thought that was hilarious, right? And especially seeing JoJo, who, as a center, it's already awkward enough because the All-Star game's not meant for you.
Yeah.
But he looked super awkward out there. KD talking trash to him. But this all after the video went up online about him doing karaoke like the night before at some bar. Did you see this?
Yeah, and what track was it?
It was Drake's nonstop. So
That's
he's
right.
he's like doing karaoke, takes his shirt off, and he's rapping nonstop. And it was super funny because the videos that are out there, people are making a lot of issue because obviously there's like white people in the video and there's lyrics where dropping N-bombs. So you bring up that whole debate again, and it's like, can't we just laugh at Joel Embiid? And don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing anybody for using the N-bomb. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying when you have an NBA player on All-Star Weekend taking off his shirt and dancing and doing karaoke less than 24 hours before a game, that is a joke to me, right? Like, I'm not here to chastise the person who's rapping along drunk at whatever. Like, that's their own issue. That's their own problem they have to deal with on their own. I was just like, this is ridiculous. And then my guy's hurt. What?
Yo.
What's happening, Webby? What's wrong with your boy?
Yeah,
What's up
I
with
hope
your
it was nothing that happened in the game, but like, and hopefully it's just a precaution, but anytime you see knee soreness with Joel Embiid, it's like, you got to treat that with kid gloves. So I'm sure a guy like JoJo wants to get back on the court as soon as possible, but just hold him out. It's like Zion. Why risk it?
Yo, hopefully he didn't hurt himself doing karaoke, man, because he looked lit in that video, man.
He was getting into it.
It's a rolling, not a stopwatch. So I'll stop. But that was funny. He was doing karaoke to Drake, who did not perform for his hometown's All-Star game, which I feel like he still kind of got a pass for that because he never got a good enough excuse as to why we had to sit through Sting. For Toronto's All-Star game while Drake was on the sidelines. But one guy did show up for his hometown that I tweeted it before it happened because I knew what was going to happen, right? Yeah. Timeline flooded with the extremes. J. Cole is either the worst rapper ever or the greatest of all time. But J. Cole, nonetheless, stepped up to the mic and performed at his hometown's All-Star game. And, Webby, I'm going to let you go first.
I got jokes.
I'm going to let you go. J. Cole, what is your take? I know which side you fall on, but for the listeners, J. Cole.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
So you know that it's not a great performance when the best thing to come out of it is people talking about your starter jacket.
It was a nice jacket, though.
It was a nice jacket. You can't lie. Now, okay, I'm getting old. I'm almost 35 now, which is scary to say. I've seen a lot of things. I tend to like to pay attention to what the people are listening to, and I understand a lot. I may not love, what the kids love. I usually get it. I don't understand. Okay. I don't understand J. Cole.
So
I don't.
Okay.
His beats are whack. I'm supposed to be impressed that he's gone platinum with no features. Here's the thing, Shelly. You know what I like? I like features. Like I like when Jay-Z hops on a track. I like Jadakiss is on your song. Amazing. Like that's fantastic thing. You know what I don't want to hear? Like 26 songs of just you. And listen, I know he's a great guy and he's bringing a whole different kind of frame of mind to the hip hop game. That's great. I don't know. I couldn't imagine jumping in my Jeep and turning up J. Cole CD. Like, hey guys, let's roll the windows down and blast this J. Cole.
Okay. That's enough J. Cole slander.
Do you see where I'm coming from, though?
Okay,
here's the thing. At least see where I'm coming from.
J. Cole, to me, is a perfect representation of takes in the year 2019 or this era in general, right? Because it's such extremes, whereas I come in the middle, honestly, where there's some of his albums I think were fire, and some songs that I think are so good, like some of my favorite songs by any artist, period, J. Cole, right? I can say that with confidence. Like, J. Cole, off his first album, Rise and Shine, is one of my favorite songs ever, okay? I can say that. Forest Hill Drives is one of my favorite albums ever. I can say that. On the flip side, there's some albums I think are trash.
Hold on. Sheldon.
Okay, I'm listening.
One of your favorite albums ever.
Forest Hills Drives.
You're gonna rate it. You're gonna rate it with 36 chambers. You're gonna rate it with Illmatic. You're gonna rate it with You're gonna rate it.
What I'm saying.
You're gonna rate it with the Black Album. You're gonna rate Forest Hill Drive.
I didn't say that it's above any of those albums. I just said it's one of my favorites.
One of your favorites. How many favorites do you have that you include as
I have a lot of favorite albums.
Yeah, exactly.
That will be a summer podcast, by the way, where we just list our favorite albums. That will be a
100%.
definite
Just going
summertime
back and forth. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, and I will say, in fairness, one of the reasons why Forest Hill Drives is one of my favorite albums is because a couple years ago he did the first day of OVO.
Yeah.
And that was his tour for that album. And it was just such a good show. It was a dope show. And I enjoy that album a lot. And it's just a fire album. Like I do not hesitate in saying that. But I'm saying on the whole, though, I come in the middle on J. Cole. I think he has some really whack albums, too, and some really whack songs. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I see both sides of it, but I just think, okay, cool. Like, I like J. Cole. I think he's okay. There's some songs I really don't like. Cool. But I'll say this much. What he did
You couldn't give PD Pablo any love in North Carolina?
Yo, PD Pablo made enough money this weekend
off
of his track being played.
Every commercial break. Every commercial break.
He did all right. Although he did tweet out that he was kind of mad they didn't ask him to perform, right?
100%.
But I'm giving J. Cole a lot of credit because someone tweeted out this story. At least I know the words to a PD Pablo song. Okay, well, here's the thing that J. Cole did. Maybe so that his performance didn't turn out how you would imagine it would probably turn out, right? But a lot of people might not know this story, but someone went to Twitter, a J. Cole fan, and they explained this. And this guy's name is, I don't think this is this person's real name, but it says Chuck Taylor, internet name. But this guy says, I want to explain to y'all why J. Cole is the GOAT. When they asked him to do the halftime show.
The GOAT
hey,
of rap?
As I said, the extremes, Webby. You just follow me for a second, okay?
The GOAT.
I'm not saying he's the GOAT. I never said
He's
that.
literally a GOAT. Like
this is Chuck Taylor's words, not mine, okay? Well, follow me for a second here, okay? He says, when they asked him to do the halftime show, he said he would only do it on his terms. All those people on the court, me included, were all free tickets. He wanted his actual fans to be a part of the show. Now, we had to wait over 5 hours in another building, standing most of the time, and he felt bad about us having to wait all that time for just 10 minutes of a show, so he decided to do a private concert after the game at another venue, and of course, that was free also. The whole Dreamville team performed, and Wale made an appearance as well. Now, tell me how awesome of a person he really is. I just think that's kind of cool. No?
Listen, I'm sure he's great to his fans. I'm sure he is.
Webby's still not impressed. That's incredible.
Listen, you know what? A lot of artists out there love their fans too.
Well, Drake didn't love his Toronto fans. He didn't even perform at the All-Star game in Toronto. He did the player intros.
Listen,
like I would have been fine with Herbie doing the intros for them.
And I would have been fine with J. Cole doing the intros, to be quite honest.
Oh, come on.
You know,
I'll say this because we're obviously going to have to agree to disagree on J. Cole. I think he's okay. You think he's trash. And some of the world think that he's the GOAT. Or Chuck Taylor thinks he's the GOAT. Where's the truth? I don't know. Depends on who you ask.
The GOAT. The greatest of all time.
All I'm going to say is I appreciate the fact that both J. Cole and Meek Mill both did songs for their fan bases. They didn't perform songs that, because especially Meek Mill. Meek Mill could have done the bangers, right? Like,
no, you do Dreams of Nightmare. It's an anthem.
Exactly, but the real fans are going to appreciate that. Whereas someone watching who is not familiar with Meek Mill at all, they're going to be like, what is this song? Why is it so slow? Maybe they might catch on and be like, oh, is this the Eagles song from last year? Maybe. But the real fans, I know I was rocking on my couch when that came on, right? I was hype. See, and I appreciate the fact that they did that.
Isn't that his most popular song?
Probably. But I mean, when people perform at these events, normally
it's
you're
usually
coming
their
with
new
the
song.
bangers.
Yeah, or the new banger.
You're coming with your bangers, right? Like he could have done Amen, or he could have done House Party, or whatever.
That's why J. Cole's set was so short.
I will say I got hyped
because
I love this song.
No
First
bangers.
Things First, Rest in Peace, Uncle Phil. Like, come on, that gets me hype. I can't even lie.
He's got no bangers, so there was.
You can't hate on Uncle Phil, okay?
The show was really short.
Let's move on. People, let us know. listeners to the Ball on Blast
And
podcast,
what
let
am
us
I
know in the
missing?
comments.
No, listen,
What do you think of J. Cole? What do you think of All-Star Weekend? All of the above. Let us know what you think in the comment section wherever you listen to this podcast.
People,
okay?
listeners out there, please tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what I'm missing.
Hey, man, J. Cole dropped some knowledge, man, and in this era, Middle Child sums it up perfectly. He's a product of, he's caught in the middle of the old school and the new school, and he's caught in the middle. Middle Child,
he's
man.
not.
It's a big song.
He's not caught. He's not caught in the middle.
Let's move on. Let's move on. So we'll stick with our All-Star Weekend, and we'll do something a little different, Webby. How about this, okay? I'm going to read you some quotes from All-Star Weekend that I found super interesting and just get your take.
From players?
From players, yep.
Okay.
And all of these things will just be, things that where players were asked during All-Star Weekend, but because, as Rachel Nichols said, the NBA players, you get all these players in a room, it's kind of like Us Weekly, there's a lot to talk about, right?
Sure.
So we'll start with Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors just because, we live in Toronto and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So Kawhi Leonard was asked about Toronto and how he's liking it so far, okay?
Right.
And here's a quote. He says, "It's great energy out there. The fans come out. They're very supportive. It's a great city. There's a lot to do. It's just been cold." I will say first, a lot of people just took that quote and ended it there and then ran with it in terms of like, oh my God, he said it's cold. And it's like, guys, it is cold.
It's like, guys walk outside.
Yeah, it is cold.
Jesus.
But also, the quote continues and he says, but the snow does look nice on days. But yeah, just need a jacket to go outside. I'm not used to wearing boots and everything. But as far as the whole city, team, coaching staff, organization, the fans, ... it's been great. Mr. Andrew Webster, if you're a Raptors fan, how should you feel about that quote from one Kawhi Leonard?
Extra, read all about it. Kawhi Leonard, not that familiar with boots?
Why would he? He's from San Diego, man. Why would he need to wear boots?
Something I'm not familiar with.
And I feel like Tim's in the summer is only a straight East Coast thing, right?
That's a good point.
New York, Philly, right?
Yeah. Tim's shorts and Tim's.
Did I ever tell you the story about my buddy carving me when we were in Cabo? And he's like, "Did you really bring Tim's to Cabo?"
Did you bring Tim's to the beach?
I didn't wear them on the beach, but like
these are my sand Tim's.
I didn't wear them on the beach. I didn't wear them by the pool. I wore them at night when we went to a club.
Honestly, just had a great idea. Timbo slides.
Hold on, you can't be giving away those ideas for free, Web.
I know. I really shouldn't. So okay. So what do I think that? How should Raptors fans react to that quote?
Yeah.
How they react to every quote that Kawhi Leonard is saying. Listen, there's nothing to read into these tea leaves, man. Like we know Kawhi Leonard. It's like he's not going to tell us if he's going to stay or if he's going to go yet.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point.
And there's so much of it is dependent on the playoffs.
Yeah, he's going to do what he's going to do. It's a long season. Hopefully a long postseason.
Yeah, and
get out there and kick some ass, and then you'll really figure out whether or not he wants to stay. It's not going to be because of the weather. It's not going to be because of what the fan all basketball players love their fans. He's not going to come out and say, "You know who's shitty? The Raptor fans." Of course not. They're great fans in every city in the NBA right now.
Also, too, we talked about it a couple pods ago, right? But there's a quote from, what's his name, Jeremy Castleberry, I think it was. But someone did the article. I think it might have been the Chris Mannix article from a couple weeks ago, where he said basically him and Kawhi, they have this thing where it's just they're going garage to garage, right? So, you're in your condo or wherever the hell they're staying. You go downstairs to the garage, into the car. You drive to the ACC. You drive into that garage, and that's it. It doesn't really matter. You're not going for long walks along Lakeshore in the freezing cold, right?
Right.
It's not a thing.
Hopefully, maybe you hit up Sneaky D's for a little King's Crown or whatever. But honestly, that's most of what NBA life is like.
Yeah.
Going from one condo or one house to the arena and going to practice. It's it's really weird. Raptor fans think that Toronto is some of this different or unique in good way or a bad way to the rest of the NBA, but it's every NBA city is the kind of the same thing, right?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. People are surprised about how lit the fans are, which is cool because it's just a lot better than people assume. But I mean, beyond that, not much has changed, right? I think when they made the trade, a lot of people still suspect he's going to end up with the Clippers, right? And we know all the rumors about Steve Ballmer being here when the Clippers were here. They've been sending scouts all season. I think most people would still assume, as they did at the start of the season, chances are he's going to go to the Clippers. But the one way the Raptors can really sell their team is have a really good season, enjoy the fact or kind of, play along with the fact that Kawhi didn't play that many games last year. So we've seen the load management and kind of let him do his thing. He's averaging career highs in points and rebounds this year. Obviously, he was voted in as a starter for the All-Star game, so he's had a good year. Raps are second in the East. And we know the best sales pitch is winning. So the further they make it in the playoffs, the better their sales pitch will be to him at the end, the better chance they have of keeping him. I don't think anything changes. I don't think any of the quotes coming out of the whole season are going to change any of that, right? Kawhi is just Kawhi. He's a different dude. I forget what podcast I was listening to, on The Ringer, but one of the hosts was telling the story how All-Star Weekend, Webby, it was, I think, All-Star Friday. He said, he woke up in the morning, it was 9 a.m. or something, decided he wanted to go down to the gym and just get on the treadmill, right? Get a sweat in before you start your day in the hotel lobby gym, right? So he's running, headphones on, and then all of a sudden he feels like a presence, but he doesn't look over to see who's beside him. And then when he looks over, it's Kawhi. And he's just kind of what? This dude's really just up in the morning running in the hotel lobby gym, right? But hey,
that's fantastic.
That's Kawhi Leonard, right? I don't know. Anyways, as we've been saying, enjoy the run. Worry about when he's gonna sign, when that decision needs to be made.
Don't read too far into these quotes that Kawhi Leonard gives.
Yeah.
First of all, the guy's not going to give you anything like that from an innocuous quote about the weather.
Would you rock his New Balances, Webby?
I haven't seen them.
Oh.
I saw the commercial. I really liked the commercial. Hold on, let's check them out.
Commercial was dope, man. The commercial was cool because I
thought the commercial was really well done and really played into his personality really well.
Totally, right? It was super cool talking about how he doesn't take selfies, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. It was kind of subtle shots at, I would say the James Hardens of the world, the LeBrons of the world, the Russes of the world, subtle
These
shots.
Black and white Johns with the red kind of strap around them.
Yeah, they're not bad. I mean, for New Balances, I only wear Nikes anyways, but I don't even rock Adidas's. Right. So for me to rock New Balances, it would take a pretty dope shoe, which I don't know what that would look like, but maybe I'd rock a New Balance hoodie or something. I don't know. Shouts to Kawhi.
Peep the KD 11 Amp Pearls. Those are the next shoes I want to get.
I did see those.
Oh, bro.
I did see those. Those were pretty cool.
I need to get those for the summer, ASAP.
Last thing on the Raptors, though. Masai Ujiri was doing the tour of ESPN either today or yesterday. And he was on a bunch of different shows, right? But
doing the car wash.
Yes. The thing that I was most interested by was, ironically enough, he was on with Will Kane, who, if people know who that is, it's a deep dive and a whole other conversation for another day. But Will Kane, I found this pretty interesting. Will Kane was asking him about whether or not he was in on Anthony Davis talks. And Masai's first answer, he's kind of kind of not really. Right? And sheepishly answered while tap dancing because obviously he can't really say. So then Will Kane with the follow-up question, which I thought was really cool because he went on this whole diatribe about, you already proved that you were all in by getting Kawhi Leonard. And so my take on your franchise was obviously if you were already all in with Kawhi Leonard, it only made sense that you would go continue that and be all in for Anthony Davis. He's like, am I onto something? Am I making sense here? Or am I full of it? Feel free to tell me I'm full of it. And Masai just awkwardly pauses, has I won't say a smirk, but a very funny look on his face. He's just kind of no, that makes sense. And I thought that was incredible, right? It was I did a mini fist bump just to be yes, of course he was trying to get Anthony Davis. I like that,
why wouldn't
right?
Now, did you also see the report today that Porzingis gave the Knicks a list of teams that he wouldn't mind being traded to?
Okay.
Raptors were on the list.
right? That would have been pretty cool. That would have been
Yeah.
pretty cool. And a change of this narrative. Nobody wants to come to Toronto. Nobody, right? Doesn't exist. I like it.
No.
I like
Well, it really shouldn't exist in today's NBA. But Masai would have been foolish not for trying to at least see what he could get Anthony Davis for.
And also, too, it's good to know because, hey, Anthony Davis told us, as we continue our quotes from All-Star Weekend, Anthony Davis did tell us that, hey, there are 29 teams on his list, right? Did you see that from the weekend? He did a lot of contradictory interviews where he just contradicted himself, saying, like, he never said this, or the list that you heard, that was the actual list. And then he said, well, actually, all 29 teams are on my list. And it was just really weird. But I think this quote summing up just how crazy the Anthony Davis situation has been, because, I mean, he hurt his shoulder the game before the All-Star game, right? Leaves the arena before the game ended. Didn't tell anyone
Rich Paul.
this, right? With Rich Paul, yes. Dell Demps gets fired the next day, replaced by Danny Ferry, and then you have the crazy All-Star Weekend quotes. But here's the thing, and this from one of the beat writers from the Pelicans. He says, Pelicans fans, breathe easy. Anthony Davis will leave something special for you as he exits. Quote, I will always have love for the city of New Orleans. When that time comes, I'm going to definitely have a heartwarming message for them and put it on Instagram like everyone else does. What? What does that even mean? Oh, man. What should happen next with this Anthony Davis situation, Webby? Should they just find a way to just sit him down for the rest of the year, or just have him fake an injury so that he's out for the rest of the year? What should happen?
Yeah. How weird was his appearance in the All-Star game, too?
Right? You leave the game, you leave the last game of the season, then you play in the All-Star game. Super odd. I think they should find a way, have him fake an injury, and then he just sits for the rest of the year, right? He can't play for the team again.
Listen, the owner seems to be taking a pretty hard stand on this, but yeah, you got to deal him. I think you have to.
They messed up the whole situation. They should have just traded him. Like, I still think you're not going to get a better deal than, like, cool, that Lakers deal might still be there at the end of the year, cool, but you just wasted a whole lot of time because the Celtics aren't giving you a better deal than that. There's too many variables that can change between now and then that you are just waiting on this to see what's going to happen with the Celtics and maybe the Knicks pick. I don't know. Too crazy. It's already been a disappointing season and such a black eye on, I think, the NBA, on Anthony Davis, on Rich Paul, on the Pelicans. Like, just a bad look all around this whole situation, no? It's time to move on from this, I think, anyways.
Yeah, I think so, too.
How bad do you think Rich Paul and LeBron come out in this situation? Just because the Young Bucks on the Lakers, things seem really bad. LeBron obviously was injured before the season. I think I saw some weird quote today about LeBron saying he's focusing in and getting in playoff mode early because they're in 10th place right now. Like, what's happening in LA and LeBron? Webby, what's your quick take there? What do you think?
I think that everybody in this whole Anthony Davis Lakers situation came out poorly. From Magic to Rich Paul to Benson in New Orleans to the team to LeBron. I think everybody took a big L in this.
Complete gong show all around.
It's so weird now because what looked like, I don't know, a month or two ago, like a promising Lakers team that was kind of built around LeBron with these ancillary pieces that was hovering around the final spot in the East is now, I mean, irreparable.
Yeah.
It's irreparable. And they
terrible.
really need a full, like, they need another full restart next year. Because I don't think that you can return these players that LeBron clearly wants to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to the end of this Lakers season, but one of the questions I was going to ask you surrounding just the second half, like the Lakers, my two things I want to focus on the most heading towards the end of this season or the unofficial second half is what's going to happen with LeBron and the Lakers, how they finish up. I think there's no way a LeBron James team, if he's playing, there's no way they miss the playoffs. I don't see that happening, but I'm interested to watch how that plays out. And obviously the Raptors. Those are the two things that I'm looking forward to the most in terms of the second half of the season. For you?
Well, okay, So I'm looking my Eastern one has to do with the Raptors. It's just that race.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see those 5 teams. They're all separated, I think, by like 6-7 games heading into this final third of the season. I think it's going to be an awesome horse race, and it's going to be must-see TV anytime the Pacers, Celtics, Sixers, Raptors, or Bucks play each other. And there's going to be a lot of those games down the stretch. It's going to be great.
I agree.
Now,
it's going to be so much fun. So much fun.
In the West, I want to see how the Oklahoma City Thunder finish the year.
I like that one. I like that one.
I really like this. I love the Thunder right now. And if you want to, if we want to talk about who's our MVP of the league right now, I know people are putting him third, but Paul George is playing. He's balling. He's balling right now. Like, it's insane. And it's also insane to see what Russell Westbrook is doing for that team, how he galvanizes every player from the Paul Georges to the young guys to the guys who were, third, fourth off the bench, and doing this by shooting 30%.
Right? And still averaging a triple-double, right? He's averaging like 20, 11, and 10 or something like that, like somewhere around there, right? They're
the most enigmatic. The team is an enigma, is what I'm trying to say.
I got you. Yeah, man.
And night in, night out, they just play so hard. It's awesome.
And you know what, Webby? I'm going to pat ourselves on the back because at the start of the season, one of the things we pointed out, again, I always say it, check the receipts. Videos are there. You can find them.
They're there.
We said,
go back.
We're looking forward to how Oklahoma City is going to play this year, and I thought they were going to have a bounce-back year because Paul George would be a lot more comfortable in his second year. There's no Melo, which just helps everyone settle into their role a little more. But the part I didn't see was, they talked about it recently, Paul George really challenging Russ to match his defensive intensity night in, night out. And those two guys are in the top 3 in steals, if not top 2 in the league in steals, and OKC, I'm pretty sure, is a top 3 team in defensive rating. And so
Russell Westbrook's shooting has gone off a cliff, but he's never been this good of a defender in his career.
Yeah.
Like, he would get a lot of steals normally, but that's because he's gambling.
Yeah.
He's doing the Kobe, just jumping into the lanes, trying to get a turnover.
Which he's still doing, but his ball defense is on the defender, or on the ball defending has been taken up a notch, right? He's matching Paul George, who we already know is one of the best two-way players in the game, but that duo, man, it's crazy, and their role players are fitting in. You can see team chemistry. Team chemistry is an intangible that isn't measured by stats, but to me it says something when Russ, Paul George, even Ray Felton are courtside at the dunk-off, hyping up their guy Diallo, right? Like, that stuff matters. I know people don't think it does because we think there needs to be a stat to break everything down, but I think that's pretty cool to see, man. I thought that was pretty cool.
And if they can really make a push here and continue what Paul George has been doing in the first half of the season here down the home stretch, how great would a Western Conference Finals be between it's the Thunder and the Warriors would be the Western Conference Finals that we damn near deserve.
With Paul George,
just to see,
with Paul George matching KD's output from KD's last year in OKC, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
and
it would be
playing
awesome.
better defense. Like, that's a
now,
part
I don't
that we're
know,
missing too. No.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I don't know if they have the shooting to get through. What would it be, like 2 rounds of the playoffs?
Yeah, that's going to be
tough. They're going to really have to find what they can in terms of 3-point shooting. But if they can get a couple of guys who get hot down the stretch, who knows? And they're the team. If you want to point to one team down this stretch that I want to watch, it's going to be the Thunder.
They got Markieff, right? They got Markieff
That's right.
too, which is a solid pickup for them.
Oh, just makes them. They're a junkyard dog team.
Yeah. That's going to be great.
Pickup.
But speaking of the Thunder, a former Oklahoma City Thunder was making some noise All-Star Weekend because of the budding bromance between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And this is one of the funniest things, and this is what makes the NBA because of NBA Twitter. I know hockey Twitter, for some reason, in Canada has been getting a push lately as if that's a thing, which compared to NBA Twitter, it's like it's a joke, right? But
I will say good hockey Twitter is, Evan on the row?
Yes.
Yeah, Evan's good hockey Twitter.
What's the follow? I'll follow him up.
Here. We'll shout him out here.
Shout him out? Okay, I like it.
Hold on, let me
But
go find
basketball Twitter, just jump in whenever you find it. But I'll continue. Basketball Twitter was on fire because obviously people are trying to find any single piece of evidence that would tie Kevin Durant and or Kyrie Irving to the Knicks next year, right? And obviously it's not just basketball Twitter because we talked about the New York Post cover that had a picture of Kyrie, KD, and Zion with the whole living on a prayer. And that's the New York Post, right? But there's more stuff coming out now, right? There was video which people ran with of Kyrie and KD talking in the hallway. And people are like, oh my gosh, what are they talking about, right? People took those photos of KD when he was holding the All-Star MVP trophy. And there's like literally nobody else standing around except for Kyrie standing right behind him clapping. And, it's one of those things where if you play the video, it probably doesn't look that bad. But the one frame of the photo looks like Kyrie's the only one standing there, like clapping for his best friend. Like it's, I don't know, Webby. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then there's photographs came up of them having dinner in Miami. Was it last night or sometime in between the All-Star break and tonight as we're taping this podcast, right? Them in Miami having dinner. There's a lot going on. Add that to Bill Simmons, who said two things on his pod. He said the two most talked about things during All-Star weekend was one about James Dolan selling the Knicks or open to offers for the Knicks. But also he said there was no one that was willing to dispel the talk of KD going to New York and also Kyrie moving on from the Celtics. No one was ready to dispel that. Okay. That's from one source, namely Bill Simmons. I'm wrapping this all up. Then I'm going to ask you if this is something to make a big deal of. Okay, Webby? Then today on The Herd, okay, Sam Amick, okay, big-time writer, NBA senior writer for The Athletic, formerly and of USA Today, I'm pretty sure as well. But he says, quote, Colin Cowherd asked him about, do you see Kevin Durant leaving Golden State? He said, quote, right now I do. His people have gone around the league and talked in pretty alarming terms about the New York possibility. That's why we're talking about it so much. Webby. That's not just internet rumors anymore. These are legitimate NBA writers.
Who's got more leaks? Who's got more leaks? The Trump White House or Kevin Durant?
Well, I'm going to add to the leaks because this from the New York Post. I'm reading this from an article that's by Mark Berman, and the title in the New York Post says, the Kevin Durant pal who could be a factor in any Knicks deal. And it says there's been speculation that Durant's agent, New York-based Rich Kleiman, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but Rich Kleiman could join the Knicks front office if Durant comes.
Yeah, that's been a story now for the last little while. And he actually said that on the Simmons podcast.
Exactly what I was about to bring up, Webby. So there's a lot of stuff going on. The Simmons podcast, he acknowledged the fact that he's obviously a diehard Knicks fan or grew up a diehard Knicks fan, always going to have a lot of love for that organization while tap dancing around the free agency talks. There's a lot of stuff. Then when you add in the whole Draymond thing and Draymond blatantly calling out KD, the way that KD snapped at the media over the Kristaps Porzingis stuff, right? When he could have just said, guys, I don't want to talk about it, but instead he went the complete other way and overreacted. Are we making a lot out of nothing, or is there something here? What do you think Kevin Durant's going to do at the end of this season, Webby?
I think he's going to leave, and I think he's going to go to the Knicks.
I
mean, what else would you have me believe? With everything that's happened with Kevin Durant over the last 5 months, hasn't it all been pointing towards this?
I totally agree. There's also rumors that he might be moving because we know about LeBron's production company, right? Kevin Durant also has a production company in which they launched their a show on ESPN Plus, I'm pretty sure, called The Boardroom. And
that's right.
But his production company, there's rumors that that's being moved right now to New York offices. So
Yes.
there's so much smoke. And if we go back to LeBron last year, the writing was on the wall, right? For him making this move to LA. And we tried to talk ourselves out of it, but in the end, that's what ended up happening. And I feel like this is very familiar as well, as we're watching the budding bromance with Kyrie and KD again. And hey, I just don't think that these things come from nowhere, right? Like, legitimate reporters aren't just making this stuff up.
Exactly. No. You're absolutely right. And then for Dolan, after Simmons said that, to come out and said he has no intention of selling the Knicks, raise your hand if you believe James Dolan about that. Really.
Raise your hand if you believe James Dolan about anything, right?
Anything. Yeah, it's just as that's like hearing the coach. That's like hearing ownership say they're giving the coach a vote of confidence.
Exactly. You're so right about that. It's a kiss of death. Totally true.
Yeah.
The other thing here, Webby, is there was a whole Kyrie Irving back and forth with the media, and of course I switched away from the window for no reason. But this came up.
That was tonight.
Did you see
right?
that today?
Yes, I did.
And we're going to go to one of my favorite segments where I just read to you, Mr. Andrew Webster, to get your take on what's happening. This is a segment, Webby, I like to call Reading. And I'll read this full exchange with what you brought up today. Kyrie Irving had this exchange with reporters about the video with Kevin Durant, okay?
Okay.
So, question. Kyrie, when folks are trying to dissect this kind of private conversation between you and Durant before the game, does that bother you? Did you see kind of the way that sort of started? How do you dissect that? Kyrie Irving, quote, I don't dissect it at all. I disconnect. So anybody's stories or social media, like, I'm completely off it. I just don't care for it. It ruins locker rooms. It ruins, like, the confidence in people. And it's just fictitious way of feeling validated in the world. So it doesn't really matter to me. Question. Do you want to say anything about the video to kind of pour water? Kyrie, quote, to what? Reporter. Do you want to say anything about the video to kind of chill it or what? Because people are obviously talking about it, Kyrie. Kyrie says, quote, what does it matter to me? I don't even have a private life when I'm out there in the NBA. Somebody wants to take a video and, I mean, what is it? Pour water on it? I'm a human being talking to another best friend of mine. Like, it's just crazy. This is the stuff that just doesn't make the league fun. Like, it doesn't make the league fun. Nobody helps promote the league even more by doing bullshit like that of just fictitious putting things on what we're talking about. It's crazy. I guess that's what you wanted, huh? Question. No. I'm just saying it's out there. Do you want to cool it off or whatever? Kyrie says, by what? Question. People are running with it, saying we haven't written about it. We're coming to you to ask you about it. Kyrie says, quote, people like who then? See, and you're having this back and forth with the media, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, you know what they're talking about. Just say, we were talking about what we're going to eat for dinner. You laugh, and then that's it, and you move on, no? Like, no, I don't get this back and forth. Because the reporter is right. The reporter says, well, it's all over the internet. To which Kyrie says, quote, is the internet real for you in your life? It's my life, right? It's two people talking, having a conversation. If this was the real world, would it be anybody else's business? But it's a video of somebody assuming what we're talking about, right? Making an opinion about it. So why would I care about it? Why does it have an impact on my life? Why are you asking me those types of questions about cooling it off? For what? I don't get it. I don't get Kyrie's response to this, Webby. Do you? Like, all he has to say is we were talking about dinner and it's not a big deal and that's it. And instead, he's questioning why people would care about him talking to Kevin Durant. Which, like, of course people are talking about him talking to Kevin Durant. No?
Here's what I like about Kyrie Irving, is that he really thinks that he can talk himself out of any situation.
Yes.
You know, he thinks that he can out-talk the media, but that's what the media is there to do, is catch you in exactly something like this. And the more that you try to talk your way out of it, the more you're just digging a hole. Like you say, he should have just said, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't want to talk about it. I'm here to talk about the game.
Also, too, like, I feel like the reporter's line of questioning just makes sense.
Completely fair.
Right? Like he follows up and says, the reason we're asking about it is because the fans are interested in it. Kyrie says, oh, the fans. This is about the fans. So you write for the fans? The reporter says, what do you do with your life? Yeah, absolutely. And that's a reasonable, right? Like, yes, of course reporters write for the fans.
Yeah.
So Kyrie says, that's where we started off the conversation. What I do with my life is my business, so it's none of yours. It's not anybody's business, right? So it's a video of me and one of my best friends talking, and then it turns out to be a dissection of a free agency meeting. Do you get that? Like, do you get that? And then I'm asked questions about it. That's what disconnects me from all that shit. Like, because I have no connection to that. Over a video, I'm asked a question about the fans, and you brought up the fans. Come on, man. You don't do it for likes. You do it for likes and clicks. Everybody does. Everybody wants to hear me talk like this. Everybody wants to hear an athlete talk about the bullshit like this. A video, though, to pour water on it, it makes no sense. It just makes no sense. It's not real life. So, on the one hand...
So he's going to New York. He's going to New York with Kevin Durant.
Right? Because he's acknowledging the fact that, okay, cool, reporters are doing this for likes and clicks, cool, that's the industry. They are doing it for the fans because the fans do care about whether the biggest, most popular franchise, maybe the second most popular franchise in the NBA, could be getting 2 max players. That's a big deal. So, of course, the reporters are going to talk about it. But also, this is my life, this is my business, you guys think I should pour water on a conversation? It's like, yes, because you could so easily do it. No? Like, instead of calling it dumb, all they have to do is say, well, they could say it's dumb and then say we were just talking about nothing. Like, of course we weren't talking about free agency. Why would we talk about free agency in a hallway in front of everybody? That would make no sense. Like, there's so many ways out of it instead of being combative with the media, which is, again, that is adding more fuel to the fire. And when you're saying players or the fans want to hear athletes talk like this, is like, yeah, they do. And if you know that and you don't want to do that, why are you falling for the trap?
No. And it's like, you're protesting too much, Kyrie.
Yeah.
By making all these crazy denials and trying to run the reporter around, you're just basically saying that, yeah, something we were talking about stuff like that. I'm trying to get out of this on, is the internet real to you? It's like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, is this what you talked about or not? And if you don't want to answer the question, you can do that too. But to try and turn it around and get all defensive definitely, like, shows out that, man, there is something definitely going on there.
Yeah, and I just think there's too much surrounding all of this. Like, there was no need for Kyrie when the Celtics were in New York for him to just randomly just turn it against the media and make it this whole thing where he's dissing Boston and, well, not dissing Boston, but talking about how tough of a season they've had. Like, there's too much going on right now where the groundwork appears to be there for both him and KD to end up in New York. And obviously they can't say that now, but I mean, when you're talking about businesses moving, you're talking about KD's agent with ties to the Knicks front office. You're talking about, is Dolan going to sell the team? You're talking about, like, there's so much going on. The Draymond thing to me was the first legitimate sign that, hey, we need to pay attention to this, because that is someone riding with KD each and every day. And if he's questioning whether KD's all in or out next season, how can the fans and everyone else not question it, right?
Right.
That would be my answer to KD or Kyrie when they say, why are you asking me about this? Well, Draymond said blank, right? Seems to be an answer for everything, right? I feel like that should be an answer to everything. Well, Draymond said so, and that's a good enough answer, no? Oh, man. A couple more things here, Webby, I just want to get your opinion on.
All righty.
There is a video of Steph Curry being mic'd up on All-Star Weekend. He's talking to Coach Bud, and he's mic'd up, but it looks like he's not, like, I don't want to say that he doesn't know he's being filmed, because you're on the court, so you have to know you're being filmed, and you have to know that you're mic'd up. But he says to Coach Bud, he says, I talked to James, meaning James Harden. I talked to James Harden in the back and obviously complimented him on what he's done. The first thing he says is, quote, it's fun, but I want to play different. Playing by myself or whatever, hero ball, the people want him to play like that. Play in a system where they actually can play beautiful basketball with guys that know how to play. Why did Steph Curry tell Coach Bud this while he's mic'd up so everybody could hear it? Right? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that? That just seems so weird to me, no?
Unless it was like an inside joke and he kind of knew that he was being
So he did it on
filmed.
purpose? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It looked like a serious conversation, but I just found it kind of funny. And, I mean, hey, James Harden did an interview with Rachel Nichols. Shout out to Queen Rachel Nichols, the queen of the NBA.
Of course.
But she did a great interview with James Harden where he talked about how he was hearing all the noise and people talking negatively about his streak. And he said, quote, it's just something he had to do. And, you know, people were kind of talking about, can you win like that in the playoffs and all that stuff? And his response was kind of like Kobe's, which people took out of context. But Harden was basically saying, it's what I have to do right now because of what our team's like. But he knows that he can't win in the playoffs like that. Like, everybody knows that. What did you make of Harden's streak that's still going, by the way? But what's your take on Harden's streak and just how it's gone and people talking about it being ugly basketball and this, that, and the third? What did you make of it?
Well, hey, it might be ugly basketball, but for the Rockets to keep winning games the way they have been over the last few months, he needs to do this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And you know what? Like, I don't mind it. I kind of get why people are like, oh, you know, it's ugly basketball. This is not the way it's supposed to be played. But I don't know. I think it's pretty amazing to watch James Harden with the ball in his hand.
I agree with you, man. I think it's been like he's had to do it out of necessity because he's playing with, you know, a bunch of castaways from other teams. When you're talking about Austin Rivers and Kenneth Faried, you know, PJ Tucker, they're relying on him probably a little too much, but that's just the situation they've been in, right? And you're right. At the end of the day, they're winning games. So clearly he's doing something right. If the end goal is to win and they're winning, hey, he's done a job and kept them in it while they've dealt with the injuries of Chris Paul. And he knows that it's not sustainable. Everybody knows it's not sustainable, but it's been a heck of a ride. But going back to the MVP talk, where do you rank him versus Paul George versus Giannis?
Well, I would probably, like, I think that me putting Paul George number one in these MVP discussions is kind of like a hot take, right?
Okay.
I think that right now most people have Giannis, Harden, Paul George, but I have it complete the other way.
Okay.
I have Paul George, Harden, Giannis.
Interesting. Okay. We'll see how that plays out. That will be one of the most fun storylines to see. You know,
yeah,
can
that's
Giannis
going to be
keep this
great.
up for the second half? Paul George, can he continue to improve? Is his numbers just like he was putting up like 30 something over the month of January? Like he's just been on a tear. It's been disgusting.
His field goal percentage is like insane as well. Like he's just doing everything.
Oh, it's been great to watch. There's one other quote that I want to get your take on before we wrap up and head to our Ask on Blast segment, Webby. But Dame Lillard said, quote, I'm not willing to sell myself out for championships. Is that some shade at Kevin Durant? What do you make of that quote, Mr. Andrew Webster?
I think you know what? I think that's shade on the whole league. I mean, and it's funny, you know, Dame's name is one of those ones that pops up from time to time.
Yeah.
You know, would the Lakers do? What would the Lakers do with Dame?
Yeah.
You know, where else could you get Dame? You know, to like take a team from the East, put them over to the top. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, like. This is what I like about today's NBA. Like, in that player empowerment era doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you're going to go to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
Player empowerment also means that if you want to stay and make it work in Portland, as Dame Lillard says that he does, you can do that.
You can, yeah. And he went on to say, and I thought this was super interesting, he was talking about the Pelicans and Anthony Davis, obviously, right? And he said they swept them out of the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah.
And now look at what's happening. And you would think if there was a team that would have been in turmoil or blowing up or whatever, it'd be his team. But instead, it's not. And he just found that so weird. And it was kind of interesting to hear that perspective, because it's not a way that I would have looked at that situation until he said that, right? And it is super interesting. And they're in what you would call a small market, and they have a great fan base, and he's just committed to the organization and his team. And he said, you know what? It's a testament to the environment and the organization, which I thought was a really big point to make as well.
It's funny. You compare that quote with the Kawhi Leonard quote, right?
Yeah.
And it's
similar.
Now, this might be really cynical, but is there much difference that you find? Is that just maybe Dame Lillard being a little more articulate? Because you take it back to Kyrie, too, in front of the group of, not shareholders, but season ticket holders.
At the start of the year,
he said, I'm going to stay, basically to that end.
Yeah.
It's so funny, like we like to think of Dame as being really sincere when he does say that. But, again, I wouldn't blame him if he does choose to go with a different team if the situation does change. I think that we hold these guys to, like, way high standards, and take them at their word. So when you say this here at 11 o'clock on February the 20th, 2019, if you deviate from what you say at that time, you're going to be labeled as a liar.
Well, the other part too is, and I've said this for a while, and I feel like as the years go on, it's getting worse, not worse and worse, but it's becoming more and more apparent. That's the right term I want to make, because whether it's getting worse is depending on what side you're on. And in fact, I'm on the player side, being able to do whatever the hell the player wants. You have more power. I'm an employee as well. So, hey, I'm going to be on the player side, right? But I've said this for a while. It's AAU basketball. Right now, you're talking about a generation of kids that grew up playing AAU basketball. What is AAU basketball? Well, hey, my team is okay, but that guy's team, they have a better point guard. They have another shooting guard. I'd fit better over there. You know what? I'm going to switch AAU teams, and I'm going to go over there and play. And you have a generation of kids that have been used to that since, grade 8? Grade 7, if not before then. So all the way up through high school, 1 year of college, which you get to pick wherever you're going to go play anyways. Yeah. You might group up with your friends as we're watching Duke still, right? Knowing that all those freshmen, they called Zion and tried to make sure he was coming to Duke as well. So that obviously will translate into the NBA when they realize, hey, we have the same amount of power too. So to me, it's been there for a while to see the players realizing the power that they now have in the situation. So Anthony Davis might have failed in his attempt, but it was worth a try because it could have worked. And if it was another GM and another organization, it might have worked. So who knows? I'm not mad at Dame for having his opinion, but I like the fact that he does have that opinion because it's just different from the norm of what we're seeing right now.
Right.
But let's wrap up this podcast. I know it's been a while, and I guess that's why we've been talking for so long, Webby. So much to catch up on. But we had to save time for our Ask on Blast segment. You told me before we started recording that you had something that you wanted to bring up on Ask on Blast. So I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Andrew Webster. What do you got for me?
I've got a homework assignment for you and for all the listeners at home.
Okay.
There's a movie that just got released on Netflix the other day. It's called High Flying Bird. Have you heard of this movie?
I have not.
Okay. This is a movie directed by Steven Soderbergh, the guy who did Out of Sight, Ocean's 11.
Okay.
He made this movie, and it's about an NBA agent. It's about the first overall pick in the draft, and it's about player empowerment and what the NBA is going through right now.
I saw someone tweeting about this. It probably was you.
It was absolutely fantastic, Shelley.
Okay, I'm in.
It's one of the best sports movies of the last decade.
And it's just straight to Netflix.
And there's no sports in it. Yeah. Now, get this. It's kind of broken up with some real interviews with actual NBA players.
Okay.
Reggie Jackson.
Okay.
Karl Anthony Towns. And, who's the third one? Oh, Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. I'm in.
So but what's her name from Atlanta is in it?
Vanessa?
Van.
Van, yep.
And
I really should look up her real name. I apologize.
I think it's
Van.
Zazie Beats or something. ZZ Beats, something like that. And then, did you see the second? Did you see the second season of what was that? fake documentary with the kids. American Vandal.
I did not see that. No.
Okay, so the kid who played the basketball player in that is in it.
Okay.
And then the main character you're going to recognize as well. He was one of the guys in Moonlight. He was one of the guys at the end of Moonlight. Anyway, he's fantastic.
All right. So,
and it was all shot on an iPhone.
Really?
Yeah.
Yo, you just sold me like 10 times over on this. Like, there are so many points in there where I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm definitely in on this. I will try to watch it for sure before next week's podcast.
Watch this movie. It's only an hour and a half. It's super short.
Okay.
Right?
Definitely in.
And tell me what you think, because I think it's going to be your favorite movie of the year.
Okay. I'm definitely in. And, of course, listeners, you guys do the same. If you've already seen it or if you haven't seen it, watch it, comment, let us know what you think, and we'll read those comments on next week's podcast, right? Sounds good?
Yeah.
Sounds like
High Flying Bird.
Also, I will recommend, because I've, with no NBA, I've been forced to,
I know,
find other things to watch.
We've been struggling.
Find other things to watch. And I made the mistake of watching Abducted in Plain Sight.
Oh my God!
I don't know.
Oh my God!
Blame Matt Lowe for this. Matt Lowe and Hannah talked me into watching it. And
it's absolutely so. The only thing is, you're gonna feel better about your parents, no matter how you were raised.
That's a great take, and yes,
because no matter how bad your parents were, they're not as bad as the Abducted in Plain Sight parents.
Yes, and that was like. I'm like, why am I watching this? And every time you think it couldn't get worse, it gets like 10 more times worse. I'm just like, this isn't real. There's like 3 times where I'm like, hold on, aliens? Wait, what are we talking about right now?
Yo, my wife and I have been making the joke for the last 2 weeks since we've seen it and that's when the trouble really started. It's like, wait, are you talking about the first or the second time your daughter was kidnapped by your neighbor?
And the dad and
oh my God.
Okay, there's too many Netflix docs right now because I'm going back to the Fire Festival doc and the scene now that everyone's talking about with my guy, the water guy, we'll call it, for people who haven't seen it.
The water guy and the dad from Abducted from Plain Sight should get together.
No, but I'm saying both of those scenes, I did not see that coming at all. Right? I was just like, wait, what? Hold on. What did my guy just say? What?
Yeah. It's
my
insane.
God. Out of nowhere. But yeah, that is a crazy watch, but I would recommend that you don't watch it as the last thing before you go to bed.
No.
Kids, don't watch it. And I also watched the show You.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the wife's watched You. I haven't watched You.
Okay. Maybe you'll give me Mrs. Webster's take next week on You, because I thought it was super interesting in the sense that it was an interesting premise, but then it just got super creepy and I felt weird watching it because I was like, I was worried about society and are there creepers watching right now that are taking cues from what my guy's doing? Yeah, it is super fucked up. And, there's a lot of moments in it where you have to dispel reality and okay, this is completely ridiculous and would never happen, but okay, I'll follow you on this, my guy. Right? This is not realistic at all, but I'll follow you on this. There's a lot of that in there, but still an interesting watch. And fellas, I'll say it's something that you can watch with the girl for sure, right? The girl will enjoy it and you can watch it, as a combo watch, But yeah, those are our recommendations. As always, let us know what you guys think in the comments and we'll talk about it next week. Because we'll trade some watches, right? I'll watch that movie for sure, and we'll talk about that next week. Sound like a plan, Webby?
High Flying Bird.
High Flying Bird. I'm in. If people want to give you their takes on High Flying Bird or anything else, basketball-wise or, Philly-wise, chirp you about Embiid being hurt again, anything at all.
Well, I'm already getting plenty of chirps from people that I don't even follow because earlier today I said that Duke was going to roll North Carolina, and right now I'm paying for it.
Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of money being lost tonight in Vegas because, I mean, Zion going down under a minute into the game, that's just crazy, right? But, hey, what can you do? One last thing, before I forget. DeMar DeRozan is making his return to Toronto on Friday. We definitely got to talk about that before we go. I can't believe I almost forgot. But Webby, what reception do you think he will get from the Toronto fans? And
Positive.
just
We live in Canada.
at this moment in time right now, as you look back at the whole situation, this was a definite win for Masai Ujiri, no?
Yes, 100%.
But Raptors,
Unless they don't make it to the conference finals.
okay. And DeMar DeRozan, greatest Raptor of all time. Rap should give him a standing O. Is he the greatest Raptor of all time, Webby?
He is, and he'll get a standing O.
Okay. I think that DeMar DeRozan, he deserves a standing ovation. It will be nice to see him get the standing ovation because he deserves it. He embraced the fans the entire time he was here. He over-delivered in terms of what the expectations were when the Raptors drafted him. He over-delivered in terms of when Brian Colangelo re-upped his contract after his rookie deal, when everyone thought Colangelo was crazy for giving him that 9.5, I think that's what it was, 9.5 a year that Colangelo gave him. He over-delivered on that, and he took the franchise from, Chris Bosh leaving and the team in a downturn, and he was a part, along with Kyle Lowry and Dwayne Casey. They were the cornerstones on turning the franchise around into being respectable again and to getting the franchise to the place that it is right now. So, yeah, DeMar DeRozan deserves nothing but a salute. And I know a lot of people think that I'm a DeMar DeRozan hater, but I will just say that Kawhi Leonard is definitely a much better player. So as much as I salute DeMar DeRozan and thank him and congratulate him for his time, I am super excited to see what Kawhi Leonard does for the rest of the season. And if Masai had to do it again, I'd be all aboard for it again.
Exactly.
But Webby, if people want to get your takes and tweet you during the Raptors and DeMar DeRozan's return, where can they find you, man?
Really easy on Instagram and Twitter at awebster84.
And you can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander and on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Of course, this is the Ball on Blast podcast, part of the On Blast podcast network, meaning there's a little something we call the Wrap It Up podcast, which is our On Blast Raptors post-game show, which you can find live on Twitter at Shell Alexander. And you can also find that podcast afterwards, the same place you find this podcast, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Google Play, and of course on YouTube. Just search On Blast Podcast. Huge shout out to the OGs on SoundCloud that have been rocking with us from day one, and as the numbers continue to grow, I'll never forget the OGs from SoundCloud. Thank you guys for continuing to rock with us. We appreciate all the comments and listens and subscribes and shares. Same thing goes for iTunes as those numbers continue to grow as well. And huge shouts to YouTube, man. I mean, in half this season, we've seen our YouTube subscriptions. We're on the brink of getting to 1,000 subscriptions in 2-3 months of having these video podcasts up during the season. Numbers on our Ball on Blast podcasts are up. Numbers on the Wrap It Up podcasts are up on YouTube. So salute to all you guys. Thank you for the likes and shares, because that's how we're getting to 1,000 subscriptions that quickly. And that's a big mark on YouTube. So thank you guys for that. Thank you, Webby, for joining me each and every week on this podcast. Couldn't do it without you, my dude. So huge shouts to you as well for being a big time part of the On Blast family. So salute to you and to the fans. Big shouts to you guys, man.
Thank you for talking about basketball with me every week.
Hey, man, basketball. We love basketball. And, of course, this is the Ball on Blast podcast. And you know what? After giving all the thank yous, it means so much more. As we talked earlier about Meek Mill and Dreams and Nightmares and what that means to the culture. And I know people think that it might just be a joke or a catchy line, but Meek Mill and what he means to the culture, what it means to me, I don't just say it as a joke, because I really did. Used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the Ball on Blast podcast. I almost said Wrap It Up podcast. This is the Ball on Blast podcast. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.
This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast podcast network. Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
On blast.